Yeah. Alrighty, I imagine we will have some people still trickling in here, but let's get started. Audience members, thank you so much for joining us. I want to call out a couple of functions. We do have a chat feature as well as Q&A. Please post your questions in either of those places. We will be monitoring both of them. Rob Gatto is going to be leading the charge here, so I will let him take it away.
All right, thank you, Jamie. Do we have enough to get started?
We do, we're good to go.
All right, so welcome to tonight's webinar. I'm one of the co-founders here at Ureeka, and I'm joined tonight by the other co-founders, Melissa Bradley and Dave Jakubowski, as well as a very cool special guest speaker that I will introduce in a second. But before that, and we get into the content, I want to say the entire Ureeka team wishes each of you, your families, your friends, a safe passage through this crisis. Ureeka was a community that was set up to help small businesses, and this webinar is all about that, providing you a plan to navigate your way through this crisis. So as you can see on the screen, we've set up a resource center. This is on the Ureeka platform. This resource center is divided into two areas. The first is access to financial aid, and the second by state, and then the second is a host of helpful tips that are broken down by category. It's a living page, so make sure you come back, each and every day, because it gets added to as we find information. And there are going to be a number of links in this webinar deck, so don't worry about trying to copy anything down. All of this will be made available after. So let's go ahead and move to our agenda. As I said, we have a special guest I'll introduce in a second, and then we're going to walk through our three-step plan, which is understanding your gap, identifying ways that you can fill that gap, and then adjusting your plans and your resources to actually strategically fill the gap. And I'll talk a little bit about other tips and suggestions, and then we'll open it up to QA. All right, so now for our special guest speaker who needs a little introduction. It's Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful. His success story started exactly where yours did, like any entrepreneur with a big idea and zero cash. His success is well chronicled, as is his ability, I think, to find and to help develop and grow businesses. Ureeka co-founder Dave Jakubowski connected with Kevin back in early 2019, and Ureeka actually currently coaches and mentors a number of the O'Leary Fund companies. He's here tonight to provide us a perspective on the coronavirus and its impending effect on small businesses. So with that, Kevin, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Rob. I asked to come on here tonight for a specific reason. I've been, for the last 10 days, dealing with what I would call the most extraordinary crisis I've ever seen as an investor. And, I'm not here to be a doom and gloom about it, but this is extraordinary. And it affects a lot of different aspects of small business, of which I am an investor in many, many, many. And so part of my job has been with my own team to review our portfolio, find out where the stress is. The key to this next 60, maybe 90 days, maybe 45 days, we don't really know, is staying solvent, keeping all your assets in place if you can, and riding out the storm. Every time there's a correction like this, it's different, and there's always, the debate of why it's unique, and it's the first time it's ever happened this way. None of that really matters. What I want to talk about today, and why I want to be part of this, is you have to think a little bit about your customers right now, your distribution strategies, your logistics, your supply chain. In many cases, they're all under stress, but this is also a huge opportunity. Not that it's good that we have a virus amongst us, but this is a chance to connect with your customers and show you care, and that you are trying to help them in every way you can with your product or your service in a way that has never been possible before. And so the key to this is how to spend digitally efficiently, because communicating with customers and acquiring customers and reducing customer acquisition costs is the bane of all small business. And the reason I got involved with Dave and the Ureeka team is they're really good at helping you solve for this. They understand how this works. They see where your problems are. They try and make it more efficient. And every single business I have needs that, because you think about customer acquisition. It's the number one reason businesses that start in America go out of business. They're never able to solve for getting a customer acquisition strategy where the lifetime value their ability to acquire it is less than lifetime value, so they don't go bankrupt advertising. And the first indication I got that Dave was spectacular with his Ureeka team was early on when he got involved with Sarah at Honey Fund, one of my companies, which did all of its business. Honey Fund does it all online, and she couldn't say enough good stuff about Ureeka. So I wanted to get closer to what they provide and show it to every company I get involved with, because we're all in this together. I will say, before I cut off here for a second, I spent today talking with big box retailers and QVC and some of the really big players that I put my products and services into, just to get and understand where their heads were at. And what they're concerned about right now is, yes, there's a propensity for people to stay at home and buy stuff. No question. Online sales, even a company like Blue Land, which was technically bankrupt, I used to be a shareholder, and the stock went up. It tripled in the last week because now people realize they have to buy plated foods. That kind of thing is happening everywhere. QVC, food sales up 350%. But here's the key and the message consistent with every single big box retailer. Show compassion to those families when you're pitching them and trying to sell them. Show you care. Show that you're in this together with them, and it's not just about a hardcore sale of your product or service. Wow, did I get that message today? And I'm flying up to QVC on Wednesday for a huge sale with some of my Shark Tank companies. We are changing our whole tone. We're going to really make sure that we don't come off just saying, how can I make more money because you're stuck in your house? That's not the message. And I'm sure, I haven't even talked to the Ureeka guys about it. They understand the sensitivity of what's going on in America now. We care about our customers. We connect with them that way. We make sure that we bond with them, and they will be with us forever. That's the opportunity. I'm going to hand it back.
Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate it. Super insightful, and as always, a good segue to where I'm headed. But before we get there, Kevin did ask me to offer a promotion here, a special to all the folks who are on the webinar that I guarantee you will not cost you a single thing. So if you join Ureeka, and if somebody on the phone can put this in the chat, it's ureeka.biz, join now, use the code Mr. Wonderful. All you have to do is post that you need help with your coronavirus strategy, and you will receive 1 free hour from a Ureeka coach to help you with your plan. Costs you nothing to join and nothing to get an hour and a coach. So there's absolutely no downside for anybody that's on this webinar. So Kevin, again, thanks. I know you got a busy schedule, and I really appreciate you taking the time to jump in here.
So let me just say, take advantage of that opportunity. You will be amazed at how much this will help your productivity. I mean, I wouldn't do this if I didn't believe in it, and I have my own companies endorsing it. So check it out. Thank you, everybody.
Great, thank you. All right, let's move on to the agenda. I said that there was a 3-step process here to figure out your plan to either A, maneuver your way through the crisis, but more importantly, as Kevin mentioned, a way to potentially benefit from the crisis in repositioning your business. So the first is understanding your gap. In order to navigate any crisis, you need to understand the gap the crisis will create. Without knowing the gap, it would be akin to trying to assemble a puzzle with missing pieces. Okay, you have to understand what does it look like as you move through, otherwise you can't plan appropriately. So let's dig a little bit deeper on that. All right, so first, finding your gap, I know this is gonna sound silly, it's a simple math equation, all right? But there's an art to it. The art is using limited data at hand to predict it, right? We all have some data, maybe not enough, and this requires a little bit of thought and a little bit of modeling to understand how to produce this gap. Leverage your early data. We've already seen challenges from the virus. Use that data to model what it might look like. What's being affected? What's going down? What's going up? What am I hearing from my supply chain? For you non-direct-to-consumer clients, can your customers pay? What level of traffic are you seeing, or the degradation? Each and every day, I know I hear about another area that's been closed down. Use these items, use the art, and come up with a gap, all right? The next step after you figured out your gap is, how do we fill it, right? So what can we do to understand or fill the gap that we've now identified? So let's dig into that. There's a handful of ways. Okay, first, the most obvious is revenue and marketing adjustments. I mean, that should make sense to anybody. And it's frankly the easiest thing for you to do. All right, what revenue do we know will be impacted? And it's obvious that things that are in store, face to face, those are all going to be impacted. I think the question is, are they impacted for good, or are there other ways to go about approaching that particular section? What revenue might not be impacted? Okay, certainly online revenue, because when you put everybody in home, I don't actually have kids at home anymore, but I've heard all sorts of feedback from friends of mine of what it's like to stay at home with 3 kids and a wife and work. When both of you are working, one of you is working, either side, how is it that you survive? Well, let's put it this way. Everybody's going to be on the couch at some point on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, Google, and Amazon. That, to me, would seem like a huge opportunity. If my business was not taking advantage of those online entities, I would be running towards them. And then think about how you would adjust the marketing in order to not only drive revenue, but think about marketing you may be wasting. How much money are you spending on activities that simply can't happen because there's no face-to-face interaction or your store's not open? I can think of an entrepreneur in Buffalo who does motorcycle gear, and she's sort of in a 80-20 range maybe for store versus online. This is a huge opportunity for her to build out her online store. And I'll talk a little bit about that later. All right, the second is expense reduction, right? That's the other most obvious one. Obvious things like headcount and contractors are the things we can do to squeeze where we're spending our money. What about suppliers? This is certainly one you have to understand for both sides. Kevin mentioned this earlier. So first, you have to understand downstream if your suppliers are having problems, because that's going to affect your ability to deliver. Now also flip it, okay? All suppliers and partners want to keep you as a partner. And so there might be an opportunity to ask for flexibility. At the end of the day, you must communicate up and down your supply chain. I think that if you're communicating to all the folks in your supply chain, you'll have a better chance at figuring out the financial ramifications and or adjustments that everybody is willing to make everything work. And then especially for non-direct-to-consumer clients, you need to communicate with your customers, whether this is storefronts or software companies. Okay, last, let's look at funding. So there are 3 primary types. Equity. If you're fortunate enough to have equity on the table, you should run, accelerate, and close it as fast as you possibly can. There are also grant and government loan programs. We talked about this earlier. They're out on the Corona resource site. There's lines of credit from your bank. A lot of things that you have, you can get a line of credit on. So if you've got accounts receivable, the bank will finance those accounts receivable. If you have a membership fee structure, they'll finance you on your membership fee structure. So again, there are ways to go after what I would call bridge credit as a way to bridge this gap. And again, I would circle back, this all revolves around the gap. If you don't know the gap, I'm not sure how you figure out, should you be funding or whether or not, how much you need. And then the other and probably obvious one is family, friends, and your own funds. But again, if I can't articulate how I'm going to make it through this crisis, what my gap is, how can I go to somebody and ask them for money, whether it's a bank, an equity fund, a friend, or my own spouse and bank account. All right, the last part of this plan. We've now figured out what our gap is. We've now gone through all of the things that we think we can do. Now, how are we going to adjust our plans in order to survive this time and maybe even thrive in this time? So let's talk about the same 3 things and how we might go about it. Okay, we're going to spend a lot of time on this slide. You must direct your marketing dollars towards activities that can drive revenue during this crisis. And you must drive your marketing dollars away from activities that can't. This may, for some of you, be simple, right? It may mean I'm going to accelerate digital because that's where I spend most of my money. This may be painful for some of you who don't spend money in digital. This crisis is completely different than the traditional recessions that I personally have been involved in. And with the inevitable step that we will all end up in quarantine at some point over the next 30 to 60 to 90 days, internet usage time is going to go up dramatically, and that's going to be the best place for you to find your customers. All right, so you can increase or start paid media. You can increase digital organic efforts. You can leverage the time to maximize content creation. I'm going to talk a lot about time later. You can remove spend aimed at driving offline activities. In the left, there's a really interesting link to what we call an audit template. And so the audit template takes you through 4 things, right? I've just told you that you need to be online, and some of you may be fine. You may be looking at your web presence and you may go, this is great. This is an advantage for me. Some of you may be looking at it going, holy cow, my website's not very good. My messaging on it's not very good. I don't know the first thing about it. We've got a great audit, and what the audit does is takes you through 4 areas. First, 1, my website, the mechanics of my website. Does it load quickly? Does it load quickly on mobile? Is it SEO optimized? Do I have Facebook and Google pixels up so that I can understand the audiences that are coming to my website, which helps me understand who to go market? Is my strategy right? Am I collecting email addresses at first entry? Am I offering first order incentive? Now more than ever, am I offering shipping or competitive shipping? I would encourage you to think about offering free shipping to folks during the crisis. That may hurt your margins, but it may help you grow your business. Do I understand the conversion funnel? And what I mean by that is there's 3 activities on a website. I hit the website the first time, I view some content, and I add something to a cart. I can provide you the benchmarks of what rate people should convert at for each of those 3 items. And I can tell you for most entrepreneurs, what we find is they convert at a much lower rate than industry standard benchmarks. And so what we can do is circle back through your mechanics to understand why it is that people that come to your site don't convert at the same rate the averages do across the internet. The second part of the audit is in messaging. Is my messaging clear? Does it have a unique selling proposition? Does it have use cases? How does it competitively differentiate me from my competitors? And then my content. Do I actually have a content strategy? Is the content that I'm putting together mapped back to the messaging that I've just outlined? And then last, do I have a media strategy? And am I really leveraging the content, the audiences that I know, and all the data that I've been given in order to understand how to do that efficiently? Okay, I can't emphasize this enough. Now is the time to enhance your web presence. Ureeka has a great format for this. I'm happy to help. If you all sign up and ask for your 1 hour of coaching, I think you'll find that this is an area that clearly can help you jumpstart during this period of time. Okay, adjust your expense plan. I'm not going to say a lot here. This one's just fairly straightforward. What headcount changes can you make if you're a single person entrepreneur? That really is at your disposal. Supplier changes. I talked a lot earlier and can't emphasize enough again about talking to your supply chain. And then there are other non-essential items. Just frankly, I do this in my own home life. You know, once a quarter, I take stock of everything that's in the house and what do we not need? What are all of the streaming services I might be buying that I haven't watched? What are the things that just happen automatically from an expense? This one's a pretty straightforward and simple one. And then settle on a funding strategy. Ureeka has some really great resources on funding strategy. I put some a link in here as well that will drive you to a way to think about what types of capital should I be going after, how to structure myself and prepare myself to look good in front of an investor, a bank. And then there's this thing called Ureeka Connect. So if you're not familiar with it, again, if you scroll down the resource page, what you'll find is an item called Ureeka Connect, where we physically connect, I should say physically, we virtually connect. I know Melissa's laughing and wants to throw something at me. We virtually connect entrepreneurs with investors. Last night we did one, we had 4, including Sarah Margulis of the Honey Fund, which happens to be one of Kevin's companies. And so they have an opportunity to present in front of an investor. And it is priceless for a handful of reasons. 1, access. 2, we hold these pitches in a way that everybody can see them. So not only does the entrepreneur learn what it's like to pitch in front of an investor, but everybody who's attended the webinar has an opportunity to see what questions are asked, how the flow is, what the entrepreneurs did very well, and what the entrepreneurs may have done better. So it's a really, really great thing. And again, if you take advantage of signing up for Ureeka, when you go into that resource center, all this will be there.
And Rob, can I just jump in here for a quick second before you leave finance, if you don't mind?
You sure can.
So finance is my favorite thing because even in a recession, 2 + 2 = 4. But I know it tends to be the topic that many entrepreneurs tend to avoid or have decided to outsource. And I would say now's the time to really understand your numbers, particularly in light of what Rob just mentioned. So similar to what we've recommended in terms of you doing an entire kind of audit of your media strategy, I would just say to do the same thing of your books. And 2 areas, really easy stuff, are understanding your accounts payable and understanding your accounts receivable. Much like in the media recommendations, spending time and thinking about scenarios. Unfortunately, we don't know how long this is going to last. And so finding some tools that can help you think about the next 3 months, the next 2 quarters, the next year, what does it look like into the subsequent year? Because those are the kind of questions that banks, that friends and family, and that investors are going to ask you. They're not going to expect you to be perfect. They're not going to expect you to get it right, but they are going to expect you to be able to think through and respond to what does come your way. And so 2 concrete things is, 1, thinking about accounts receivable. Everybody is going to be trying to hoard everything they can. And some margin is better than no margin, and certainly better than having to write it off. And so one suggestion would be to think about, are there certain accounts that you can offer a discount for paying you now? Will a 2% or 5% may be helpful to someone who has to pay you, but may not be a big of a deal for you if you have a 15 to 20% margin, but a way to accelerate those receivables so they're not sitting there, particularly when everybody else is so preoccupied with what's going on. And then in terms of payable, I would say really read the fine print. I think we tend to respond when we get it, but make sure that you understand what stands and what is possible for cancellation. I know there's been lots of conferences. We were looking forward to seeing a lot of you at South by Southwest. And this term force majeure that I think most of us never thought would come into play is now a big deal. And so I'd say when you have supplier or manufacturing contracts, read them carefully and just make sure you know where there are opportunities for you to ask for leniency or even readjust your payment terms, or where there's opportunities where you need to make sure that that's built in, because what might have been a variable cost now becomes a fixed cost because you can't get out of it because you're locked into a certain period of time. But I would say that we're going to continue to live in the world of uncertainty. And so where you can have the greatest control and the greatest insight and information around your business and how to manage your cash flow is going to be extremely important. So hopefully those tips are helpful from a finance perspective, because any investor, including the ones that we had last night, where, might I add, we had yet again a 100% match rate, they wanted to dig into the numbers. And again, not assume that we all have a crystal ball, but know that we have a leader that can actually think through and run scenarios of what to do with different levels of cash and what to do and how to best leverage debt or equity. Thanks, Rob.
You're welcome, Melissa. And I'll highlight, to me, Kevin mentioned it, and so did Melissa. The 2 lifelines to a business are, can you acquire and grow customers? And can you figure out how to financially run your business to move through cash flow or crisis periods or any dips? And we have a ton of expertise at Ureeka, both in the coaching, the mentoring, as well as the content side. And so I would encourage you to ask questions, ask for help. Those are 2 areas that we can clearly help. And I can tell you, the entrepreneurs that jump in and ask questions, they chat all the time. They're the ones who really have benefited from what we've put together. All right, I'm going to move on, but a quick review just before I move on to other tips. 3 pieces: understand your gap, identify the opportunities to fill the gap, and then adjust your plans. And as everybody on the phone has mentioned so far, you have to understand what's the goal is to get through the crisis and get to the other side. Look, if you can grow while you're doing it, fantastic. But goal number 1 is to make sure that you survive this crisis and come out on the other end better for it. All right, so I'm gonna roll through these other tips and suggestions pretty quickly because they're in the resource section, but there's a couple in particular I wanted to spend some time on. All right, first, the coronavirus has actually given you something incredibly valuable. It's going to give you time. And you know that may sound weird, but it's going to give you time, and you need to leverage it. And I would argue that you should leverage it across 3 different areas. First, you should think about it strategically. What will a recession do to my industry? what's my strategic position? Are there adjustments that I should be making in my overall business strategy? We have a great resource of which there's a link here. We call it the 3 circles exercise, and it helps you define your overall mission, vision, and corporate strategy and tactics. And I find going through it, even after I've been in my business for quite some time, it's a great refresher. In the middle, messaging and positioning. I talked a lot about your website. The website's no good if it works. It's SEO optimized, but it has crappy messaging. So do you have clearly defined and validated value proposition? Do you really understand your highest value customer segments? And do you really understand where you'll find them during the coronavirus time and post? And again, we've got a great resource here that we call the product marketing building block. And what it does is it takes things and chunks it down. What's my target audience? What are my use cases? What's my value proposition? And what's my competitive differentiation? And it forces you to build these things and then put them together in your messaging. And then last, from a tactical perspective, you need to focus during this time on updating and building out your digital assets. Focus on your online acquisition strategy. That's where you're going to get the most bang for your buck in the short term. Okay, meetings, conferences, and events. Melissa touched on this. Don't cancel meetings. Take them to video. Every single Ureeka member has a free Google Suite access with their membership. That means you have access to video calling, document sharing, PowerPoint sharing, spreadsheet sharing. Use the tools and make everything virtual. What I think you will find when we spin out of this virus period or crisis, excuse me, is that you'll be way more efficient if you figure out how to use video. Ureeka is a virtual company. We do not have a single office, and while at times it can be a challenge, I can tell you we get a tremendous amount done because of the quick nature of using video and sharing a Google Docs. Build an online event experience. So if you rely on events, I've seen some really cool and really neat online event experiences. Just go down Twitter, go down LinkedIn. You'll find all sorts of virtual ones that you like, ones that you won't like. And I think that this is just a great opportunity. And then you obviously have to adjust your event sales strategy. If you rely one-on-one and in person, you've got to come up with different ways. Managing employees remotely. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, but there are some things you should be paying attention to when you manage employees remotely if you have employees. I talked about this earlier, and I'm just going to mention it quickly again. Communicating with your external shareholders or stakeholders is important. Let everybody know what's going on, but you can't let them know what's going on if you don't have a plan. So have a plan and communicate the plan. The same thing exists with internal stakeholders. Employees first. It's important to show empathy and to set your employees up to be safe first, and then efficient second. Last, use a community. We're not the only one. Okay, I'm biased. I think ours is great, and I think that you should join ours and you should use it. But use community. You're not alone in this. Navigating this crisis is not easy, and it's even more difficult to do alone in your home, which most of us are these days. So use communities like this. And there's a ton of links to help. Again, we will send this deck out. Some of these or most of these are in the Ureeka platform as well. And with that, I am going to open it up to questions. You have the entire group here.
Great job, Rob.
Thank you. I don't,
Since
I'm the one
that asked in the Q&A, and I just want to highlight they had inquired about nonprofit resources, and I just wanted to let the community know that if you know of a nonprofit, we will be sure to compile some resources. We're organizing things now, and so they will be integrated into the site as well. So we are tracking what our members need.
All right, do we want to, it looks like there's a lot of questions in here. Do you want me to sort of tackle rolling through these?
Yeah, Dave's been answering some.
I like Renee King. Is that Kevin from Shark Tank? I think it was. All right.
Yeah, I have Renee's question I have ready to go. And it was, is there another goal of hitting metrics during this crisis that investors might be judging you on?
Good question for Kevin, if he's here. He invests in more things than anybody on this call.
If he's not, I'll jump in on that. I think the answer is investors are looking for you to give them a plan with metrics in the plan and then watch you achieve those metrics. Now, one could argue more profitability, less profitability can have an impact, but at the end of the day, what an investor wants to know is that you understand your business, you have a plan for your business, and you can execute on that plan to achieve the metrics that you're laying out, no matter what those metrics are. If you don't have a plan, you can't communicate the metrics or the strategy, and then you miss whatever it is you communicate. That's a really bad scenario to raise money in. I don't know if Dave or Melissa, you want to add anything to that?
No, I would just
go ahead, Melissa.
I was just going to say, I do want to let people know that in this crisis, this is not about necessarily doing all new stuff. And my sense is, as we hear from many of our members, that you already have ideally a set of your own metrics you're tracking that are part of a CEO dashboard, ideally. So I just want to remind people to take a deep breath and know that you're probably doing most of the right things. This is a chance to really tweak, because I don't want to get people panicked that they have to go create all new metric systems, but it is indeed making sure that you can demonstrate for every dollar you put out, something's actually going to come back, and that shows just wise and smart investment and some level of return.
And I'll share an example for Renee. One of the folks last night asked Sarah that question live, and I thought she had a perfect answer. She basically said, look, when we look back on this over the trend of a year or two, less people aren't going to be getting married. That means we're going to have a flood of people who get married in the fall. And so while I might have a dip right now, I'm investing in my business to add all of the things that I know that are going to make me more money when those weddings come back. And so I'm going to have a dip and an acceleration at the end of that. And the investors were impressed with their answer, and it was an excellent answer. So I think it's the more you think about your business and you have rational plans, all of the investors that I'm talking to, and I've talked to dozens of VCs over the last 10 days, all of them are far more concerned about helping their companies get to the other side of it than they are about keeping score of the wins and losses in the middle of it.
So Rob, we do have a question coming in, if I may.
You may.
So it says, are investors, VCs, more inclined to responding via cold emails in the current climate, or is a warm intro still the best strategy to get an intro?
I mean, I'll take a quick stab and then let Dave. I mean, he's obviously a fundraising king, but the reality is any relationship where you can receive an intro is way better than cold. Investors typically invest in a combination of people and ideas, and many of them will not invest in a great idea, if it has poor people. They will definitely invest in ideas that have great people with a great idea, and then there are some that will invest in great people with a mediocre idea, knowing that the management team and the founders have done this before and can navigate and pivot. So that said, I think that the best way is to figure out how you fall into that bucket of experience, which really lends itself to, a warm handoff, a way to get in the door so that somebody is reinforcing your ability is way better than cold. Dave, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
No, I think you nailed it. The short answer to your question is sure. A warm handoff is always better. That's why we created Ureeka Connect. To be extremely candid, it's not easy to get in front of lots of investors. Not everybody has access to that warm handoff. And we created the unique Ureeka Connect program to break those barriers, shatter that glass ceiling, and let the best companies rise through and sit in front of the investors who invest in their categories. Most of the investors that you'll see have a thesis, they have an area that they invest in, and they have a little bit of a formula that they use. And so Ureeka Connect, we try to match the investor group with the right companies to go through, and it's why we do it every month. We're in the middle of the coronavirus epidemic, and we still held it yesterday because it's always virtual, and we're still bridging gaps to those investors. But the one pause I want to give here is we get asked by just about everybody in the community to introduce them to an investor. And I'm pretty proud of the efforts that we have to it. Less than 10% of the companies actually are right for an investor. And a lot of folks you probably don't want an investor necessarily. And if you don't have the formula of the big market opportunity, the proven track record, and then the team that can execute against it, it's really, really hard to get. So if you focus on proving that traction, getting great unit economics, you open up all of those opportunities. Maybe the investor is right. You can then maybe get into afford bank loans, grant programs are good, or you can self-fund. But no matter what, if you don't have that key middle part of proven traction, and you watch it with Kevin and all the other folks on TV, they're really looking for proven traction. And if you can prove that, you can go far in every one of the financing avenues that's available.
Awesome. We're going to shift. Our friend Bill Teeter has a question. Can you comment on how IRL, in real time, based businesses such as gyms and sports clubs can leverage time, knowing their best capabilities, and generate some offline to online content business?
We actually have a gym guru on Ureeka who somebody asked this question of. And what she has done is she has shifted her business to remote programming. So she took every one of her members she's based in the Bay Area that is on lockdown. So people can't leave their house. They can't go to the gym. She can't have her gym open. So she went to remote programming. And so she gives every day, she puts out workouts that you can do at home with things that you have around the house and body weight. And so she has shifted her model to that, to have continuation of service for all of her existing customers. And she's not out spending lots of money on trying to acquire new customers. Instead, she's using her organic strategy to invite people to participate in the group efforts that they're doing. And she's set up group things on her Zoom account where people can come in, and she runs them through the workout that she does from her home. She does that a couple of times a week, but then she emails out the workout of the day for everybody to do. And she's inviting all kinds of people in that she's providing that service for free. So at the end of that, she's going to have a huge list of emails to then go market people to bring into her gym. And that's exactly what Kevin was talking about. Find the opportunity to be empathetic, help the community out in this time, and then flip it over at the end of it. And so that came from our gym guru on Ureeka. Her name is Melissa, by the way.
Which is a great name. We have Jenny Lynn from Snarky Tea who wants to know what other companies are seeing or recommending about new product launches during the coronavirus epidemic.
This is actually a great question. I'm going to punt to you or to Dave. I have my thoughts, but I'd love to hear yours.
I'll keep it brief. I mean, I think based on your comment earlier, I was on a coaching call about 2 hours ago, and this also came up. The reality is that for not great reasons, you have a captive audience. And this is an opportunity that if you have a solid source of supply manufacturing, it's a wonderful way to test people's product. To me, this is a chance to go back and do customer discovery again. This young lady was actually do a webinar with all of her VIP customers to roll out potential new products and to kind of get ahead of the curve and tee them up as kind of brand ambassadors for her. And so I think in a time where I've just watched my own personal cell phone usage go up dramatically in between meetings and multitasking. It's a great way to get eyeballs and to get feedback before you tank too much money into it, and to really identify who some of your super users are and get them to test it and keep them engaged. I think you said it best, Rob, when we started. The whole point here is to really figure out and revise and review our customer acquisition strategies to make sure that you're retaining them, because now is the time when they'll be looking for stuff to do.
And if there's a way to produce any sort of empathy in the messaging that you bring the product to market, I think it's even better. It doesn't have to have it, but at the same time, I think I would just be slightly careful that your messaging does not come off as not having empathy, if that makes any sense. So none is okay, some is better. Total lack is probably not the right way.
So first of all, I love snarky tea. I'm a big tea fan, as everybody on this call will tell you. I am constantly drinking tea. I drink no coffee.
He's late for that doggone tea.
I do. So thank you. Keep at it. I'll reinforce what they said and then give you an example. If you can figure out ways, it goes right back to what Kevin said right at the very beginning. If you can figure out ways to be empathetic and relevant with your product launch, it's very, very important. So I'll give you a good example. I did a mentoring call, one of the ones that we volunteer here, with a company that sells shirts primarily at events. And they do really, really well when they're out selling shirts at events. And their shirts are cool, and they do all these fun caricatures, and they really resonate with kids. Well, it's a very stressful time for parents and kids, and how you explain what's going on right now. And they've wanted to shift more and more of their business to digital. And so they're using their time to revamp some of their website, making some low-cost changes that they can invest their own time in, so that they can have a better digital presence. And they're shifting their designs to be a little bit more friendly about COVID-19 and testing and healthcare workers and all around the theme of it. And so they're using it to try to move in and to try to alleviate kind of some of the stress and the anxiety for kids, that a lot of their clothing, and they have stories and a whole bunch of other things that go with it. And they're kind of shifting it to alleviate that for this scary, scary time right now for families.
So we have another question.
You got a question from Yoli?
Okay, so we have the chat questions and we have Q&A. So let me get this one on Q&A, Rob, because it's been here for a little bit, and then we'll go to Yoli.
Got it.
My business is 95% dependent on selling to hotels. How do you prioritize an action plan to save your business when it's being so heavily impacted? And then I was going to ask, what are you selling? I mean, I'll take a stab at that, while hopefully they'll write back. It's anonymous, so I can't ask them directly. You know, I think to Rob's point and to everybody's point, this will pass. And so the opportunity is, you know, you still can be in sales mode, and to the extent that you, again, can operate with empathy. And if this is an essential product or a near essential product, then ideally, hopefully you're not seeing too big of an impact, and you have figured out how to, and maybe Rob, you can share some of this, but how do you create those sales conversations to virtual? If it's something that is not essential, you know, be respectful and recognize that hotels and others are kind of waiting this out. But think about, are there ways for you to pre-sell, even if it's at a discount, so that you know when the dip comes, it's going to go back up. I mean, my hope is that this lasts a long time. And someone asked if we have international connections so that we can learn as they kind of go through this. And I think one US-based proxy is seasonal companies. There are companies that deal with this on a regular basis where there are ebbs and flows. The difference is usually they're predictable. So take an opportunity and just really think about, A, is there a way to pre-sell? Or B, depending on what you're selling, is there another market out there that you just haven't tapped? And be flexible though, right? Don't sell it the exact same way you would have sold it, but think about what the end user needs.
Yeah, I think it's exactly right, Melissa. I was going to say, look, first and foremost, hotels are shutting down. So, you know, you need to understand your gap and probably figure out how do you tread water until the hotels open back up within your primary business. And then I would agree totally with Melissa that sort of being ready so that when they open up, you're top of mind to make sure your product's the one in is the other. And then, we mentioned that slide that talks about time. This is a great time for you to maybe evaluate, are there other avenues or other places that you can take the product that you make, so that you're not ultimately so dependent upon hotels. And that may not be the case. If that's not the case, then the first two hold true, which is, what can you do to tread water until we get through this particular spot? And then I think once the hotels open back up, you want to be first in line.
Yep.
And whoever asked that question about the hotels is a prime candidate to get a one-on-one with a mentor. A lot of this is very product specific, which is why we want to open this up, and we have a mission to get everybody who needs help access to at least 1 hour of human one-on-one time to talk about your product, because there's lots of nuance within it.
Yep, and if the person who came back on, somebody just typed window treatments, and if that's the case, I will say that I have seen articles and market research that has says, because people are home, the one thing they're thinking about doing is home repairs and home improvements, particularly because the rates are so low. I know folks that are thinking about refinancing in this time, because there is such an opportunity, unfortunately, to really think about how do we manage our finances. So we highly encourage you to sign up for a one-on-one. Let's go to Yoli's question, which says, what are your recommendations about hiring 1 or 2 key strategic roles that can actually help us navigate the crisis, fill those gaps and grow, considering the results won't happen immediately?
I mean, this is just this is classic of why you go through this exercise of a gap. So, we are still hiring some strategic resources because we believe in the future and we understand our gap, and we know that we can get through that gap. So if you understand the gap, can get through the gap, and you feel like you can come out the other side running faster than the competition, sure. But I think if you haven't done the exercise to understand what your gap is, then there's risk. But there's no reason to, from my perspective, to, again, it depends on the business, but there's no reason to run and hide in a shell. If there's an opportunity for you to take advantage of this particular environment and come out the back end faster and stronger and better, sure. Just make sure that you do it in a way that monetarily you can get there.
Yep. So I'm going to combine a couple of questions in the Q&A. Again, want to echo Dave's comments of please sign up for a coaching session, because some of them are very specific. But a general theme that's coming up is, how do I articulate this snafu to investors or suppliers or others that I'm seeking a relationship with? I would say I think most people will know, but I think the question around what do you share, maybe what do you don't share, and how do you begin to put a spin on this so you come off looking like you actually are still in charge and have a handle on the business?
So from my perspective, I've always felt like doing business in a transparent way is the right way. And then 2, communicating so that everybody understands that transparency makes sense. Now, there's always some level of spin on what your situation looks like and how you can spin it in a way that it makes sense. But for me, people want to work with you because you're sincere, you're transparent, and they know that you'll deliver. And so as long as you communicate what reality is and how you're going to fix reality and what you're going to deliver, then there's no reason that people should not want to continue to work with you. And I would argue that in many of those scenarios, they'll actually go the extra mile to help you to make sure that the relationship works. If you don't communicate, you're not transparent, ultimately you'll end up in a situation where they figure it out, and there's a lack of trust at that point. So to me, business relationships are all about trust and delivery.
Yeah. In that vein, we're going to go back to funding, which I know is a hot topic. Someone said, what about crowdfunding campaigns? Any advice on how to keep the momentum without agitating a current base of donors? Any advice on how to prime them to be ready post-corona?
Dave, why don't you take that one?
You're on mute, my friend.
Oh, sorry.
Go.
Crowdfunding is an outstanding opportunity during these downturns, but it depends on how much money you need. So going and raising $2 million in crowdfunding, really, really hard right now. Going and putting together $1,000, $500, $2,500, $3,000. These are all fantastic opportunities to do that. People are crisis tends to bring people together. This country could use a little bit of that right now, frankly. And so people are inclined to they're scared, they're hoarding cash, but they want to help each other. And so you have this interesting dynamic going on. So if small amounts of money make a big difference to you, then it's a really good source and opportunity. And Kevin has a lot of experience with this, and I know he can talk about this. We have Renee King on Ureeka, who has a lot of experience about the best ways to go to talk to people about this and to prep yourself for this. So she's a great person to reach out and ask for help on Ureeka. So there's good sources to get in. And again, that's one that's very specific to your business. So get in, ask for that help. We'll get you lined up, and we'll get you assigned to somebody who's a crowdsourcing expert, depending on what your need is.
Renee's already chatting to all panelists, saying, ping me on UChat.
And I know Renee, she rocks, so take her up on that.
For those of you not on the platform yet, UChat is a chat function inside the platform.
Yep. We have one more other question, and I'm being mindful of time, but this one I'm going to make it a little bit broader. What about companies that are catering to the luxury market? What should they be doing right now?
Hoarding cash. That's a tricky one right now. That's a really, really tough one. You're watching, you can look, guilt, somebody else asked me this question, and I started to look into what was going on with the luxury market. And I started to do a little bit of research. I didn't get a lot of good information. And then randomly, I was just checking my personal email, and I got all this stuff from Guilt. And I opened up my Guilt app, and there was all kinds of stuff about discounts and sales and opportunities right now because they want to move product. And so like the discounts on lots of stuff, at 80, 90% off were flowing. So I think that that's an indication that the luxury market has really tightened up. So if you're in the luxury goods market, discounts and figuring out a plan to get to survive to the other side of it, because these things tend to swing back the other way and the pendulum overcorrects. And so you want to be in a spot where you can take advantage over the overcorrection. Again, might be worthwhile getting a mentor and somebody who's got some luxury good experience. See if we can do that and reach out to our coaching team to see if they can find somebody for you, because that's a tricky one, no question.
Yep. Sometimes, Dave, there might be the opportunity. I know luxury folks don't like the discount, but they do often run things through the outlets. And so that may be an opportunity to move some product to keep yourself, sort of afloat. But I agree with Dave. You need to find somebody who understands that space,
yep,
which we can do in the community.
Yep. And I have to say that I love that at least in the Q&A section, we've got participants answering other participants' questions and sharing stories and giving advice. And I just want to say that's what this was all about. When we set out to start this company, it was not just bringing expertise, but allowing you all, the entrepreneurs, to be the experts in the fields and spaces that you are. So it is awesome to see the peer communication, even with this webinar.
Yeah, Melissa, for those of you on the call who have not been in the community, the neat part about the community is, sure, you can get access to coaches, mentors, you can access the products and services that you need to leverage. You can get access to how-tos, but more importantly, you can get access to people who either are in the same stage you're in, or people who have been in that stage and already moved on to the next. And what the virtual nature of the community allows you to do is, if you live in Buffalo, you might be able to find that person in Texas, or in St. Louis, or in Cleveland, or in Baltimore, or in DC. And I would second that one of the neat things that I've seen is that really entrepreneurs become mentors and mentors become entrepreneurs. They sort of flip the hat back and forth, and it's really a cool thing to see.
Yep. And speaking of that, Jill, who is just signed into or has put a comment in the Q&A, so that I've worked in a luxury space for years, and people who have money will be resilient. This may be an opportunity to look at how people are shifting their definition of luxury. They may not want to spend straight up on material things, but things that will create comfort during this challenging and uncertain time. Great opportunity for home. Love it. Thank you, Jill.
Yeah, awesome.
Love it.
You want to do the marketing events one, Melissa?
Yep, our number one source of income is from face-to-face marketing events. I'm hearing we need to ramp up our digital presence loud and clear. Any other trends that you're seeing? I think there's lots of trends. I think after the demise of some significant events, people have figured out how to go virtual. And I would say that, things like this, Zoom or any other platforms or Google Hangouts and the like are amazing things. I would say a couple of things to be mindful of. If you're going to do a webinar, make sure that you give people some context of how to best use their time, because I think people are feeling panicked. And so really making sure that it is advertised to provide value is going to be extremely important, because there's lots of these things happening. 2, make sure that you make it easy for people to access. 3, record it so that you are showing and create the virality of the value of what you're trying to do. And 4, make sure that it's audience engagement. We learned that very quickly. Nobody wants anybody to just talk at them forever, which is why people tend to do phones while watching Netflix. And so make sure that it's interactive. The other thing is, I would say, think about the face-to-face marketing going online, not just around you recreating the event, but how do you leverage other channels and other programs to be able to continue? If you have an event, how do you continue the momentum of that event? And maybe you have a private group on Ureeka, like you would in a Slack channel, and have people there and continue that conversation. How do you keep the conversation going? How do you create follow-ups? How do you create engagement opportunities? But there are tons and tons of online programs, and there's many tools in our coronavirus kit. And obviously, if you're a member, you have access to the entire Google suite. But I do think it's important that while you're trying to get that face-to-face to virtual, you still think of it as a large campaign or event, and you think about all the activities you need to do beforehand, and you sustain that activity thereafter. I do find that a lot of people are rushing to get things online, and then once it's over, it's over. But this is your chance to get people and use these events as a customer acquisition strategy, and be mindful of how you want to retain them over time.
And before you take the next one, just as a highlight, I've changed my screen and I've put the Ureeka platform up.
Yes.
Many of you are asking questions. How do I connect with somebody? How do I connect with somebody? My assumption is you're not members. Once you're members, there really are 2 areas. The news feed is a place that you can post and ask for help. And then over on the right is a chat area, and you can start a new conversation, and everybody is in here in alphabetical order. So for instance, I can find Melissa Bradley. She's right there, and I can click on her and I can send her a chat and say, I would love to connect.
Awesome.
That's how it works.
And Rob, I don't know if you want to, but I can mute myself here. You want to give me a call?
Sure, why not? You can also talk to people through the platform. We've tried to make this in a way that you really don't have to leave. You can get everything done that you want. We'll soon have video in here. You'll see that I can chat with her. I've got an opportunity to do more than one person in a chat, and then I have an opportunity to call. And so what'll happen is it'll call Melissa, she can pick up, and we can talk specifically here on the platform. You can do that as a group calling mechanism as well. And then over here in the upper left-hand corner, COVID resources.
Awesome.
All right.
And we have tons of people who are verifying that the phone call works awesome. And I say that because that's important, right? For the person who just asked about events, it's not just about recreating in a visual, but it's really about building community. So we're so glad to have so many of you on the community, and we hope we'll have even more as I see the requests coming in for coaching and interest to continue and certainly be a part of Ureeka Connect. any other questions. Oh, and Kristen reminded us that if you are on the platform and you don't know who to ask, then all you have to do is go to the feed area, post a question, and then click on the question mark, and we will get a response to you as soon as possible. Or you can send an email to mentoring@ureeka.biz.
Here's a great example. Nicole Snow, who I spoke with yesterday, is actually on the platform while she's on the webinar, and she's already posted, I'd love to work on our strategy for navigating COVID-19. This current WebEx is awesome. When you make a post, you can click the question mark, which is tag it for help. And so we prioritize anything tagged for help right away.
Awesome. Any other questions? Oh, wait, they keep coming in. Oh, okay. So we're getting tons of praise, and the biggest feedback seems to be that we were very tactical, which I think just continues to exemplify what we do every day on the platform. Any closing comments from you, Rob or Dave?
I'd just like to say thank you. I know it's an evening and it's over an hour, and there's nothing better than folks who are engaged. And like I said earlier, the Ureeka team is here for you, and we wish you sort of a safe and passage through this crisis, both personally and professionally. So I know the entrepreneurs I talk to, I'm happy to help with anybody at any time of the day. You can send me a UChat. So again, thank you, and we look forward to helping where we can.
The only thing I would have to say is, look, we're taking our own advice here, and we're trying to come out with a pretty big, wild promise that anybody who asks for help, we're going to try to get you 1 hour with a minimum of 1 hour with a human being who will help you think through your problem set. We all unfortunately have more time on our hands than we counted on during this season. Take advantage of that, start to visualize where you want your business to be, seek the advice of somebody else. It takes the loneliness and the scary feeling out of it, if nothing else. And for most people, they find that having somebody to work back and forth with on putting together a plan helps a lot. Ask and take advantage of the opportunity to do it, and push us and test us, and we'll do our best to respond to your needs.
Awesome. And I just want to thank everybody for joining. I know there's lots of things you could be doing, even including happy hour after teaching your kids all day. But we really appreciate you joining us. Someone just reminded me the beauty about being a member of Ureeka is that you don't have to wash your hands after you type, unless obviously you're sitting in a public place. But if you're on your own laptop, it's the safest place you can be. I just want to say it is an honor to serve each and every single business owner every day. We have been jam-packed. I have a coaching call after this, but this is why we do what we do, and we can't do it without you. So please be sure to lean on us and use us. Take us up on the free coaching hour during this time. We are here to help you so that we can see you and celebrate you on the other side and keep your business from going from now until. So thank you all again for this evening. I want to thank all of my colleagues at Ureeka Connect because we are all working quadruple time, but it's what we signed up for. And for every single entrepreneur, we're here to help you actually realize your dream and your passion. So thank you again. Have a wonderful night. This has been recorded, and we'll be sure to get it out to everybody who has signed up. Look forward to seeing you on the platform. Good night.
Good night.